Hello and welcome to One Cool Thing, PC Mag's daily show where we talk to you about a cool thing such as this phone that we have reviewed recently or tested out here in PC Labs. I'm Tom Brandt, this is AJ Kumar, and we have the BlackBerry Key2, an update to the Key1 smartphone from BlackBerry, which you may remember from years ago as the top selling smartphone maker. Now they make this.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of a throwback to back in the day, because as you can see, it does have a physical keyboard, which is probably the only phone that has it on the market right now, at least when you look at a modern smartphone.
Now, we're going to talk to you all about the Key2, but we would like to know what your questions are. You can put those in the comment section of Facebook Live if you're watching on Facebook Live, or if you're watching this somewhere else on the internet, like YouTube or something like that, definitely come back to Facebook every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about lots of cool things for you. And the Key2 here, really, the point of this phone is not necessarily the physical keyboard, which is really cool. It's the only phone that has a physical keyboard that we've reviewed recently, but it's really focused on security and privacy, right?
Yeah, this is, if you're a security-focused person, this probably has the best granular controls of privacy I've seen on an Android phone. You can basically tweak every single app to see what permissions it has to control the individual permissions, and it's all located in like an easy breakdown. So Android has rolled out that feature now. You can get that feature on Android, but BlackBerry kind of just lays it out for you in the cleanest way I've seen. So it breaks down just a lot of the permissions in a really easy way. Beyond that, you can also, when you take photos, you can basically upload it directly into a secured folder that doesn't go to Google Cloud. And I believe Sasha put it as the best phone for your nudes, which is, it is. I mean, it's going to be in a locked, encrypted folder.
Right, and you know, should you need to describe those photos, you can do so with the physical keyboard. But really
tying it together.
But really, the thing is, like, the BlackBerry is all about you know, security and things like that for corporate customers. If you are just a consumer, however, and you want a well-functioning phone, maybe you like a keyboard, is this, like, how does this function for just everyday, you know, smartphone use for consumers?
So if you're an everyday user, basically you're looking at a phone that's a little bit higher than the average mid-range phone. So the top tier phones are Snapdragon 845. They're going to cost you around $700 or $800. This is $649. It runs a Snapdragon 660, which is better than most mid-range processors, but it's not going to hit the high end. If you care about camera, which almost everyone does, you do get two dual 12-megapixel sensors with zoom, 2x zoom, but no optical image stabilization. And
so that kind of is a key drawback there. With no optical image stabilization, the cameras are not quite as good as you'd get from, say, an S9 or a Google Pixel. But part of the reason for that is that the phone is cheaper at $649, right?
Right, it is $649. It does shoot a little bit noisy compared to the OnePlus 6, which is $529, and it has higher-end processors and a better camera overall. So basically, if you're the average consumer, the keyboard would be the real selling point. You're someone who sends a lot of emails, a lot of texts, and really wants to type on this keyboard.
Now, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the BlackBerry Key2 smartphone, and we'd like to take your questions.
Are there any exclusive apps for BlackBerry?
There's a couple. So you have BlackBerry Messenger, which if you're familiar with that, that's BlackBerry's own messenger. This is all running on Android. So you don't have all those old BlackBerry apps if you're someone who hasn't had a BlackBerry phone.
The BlackBerry OS no longer exists, right?
Okay. There is a BlackBerry Hub, so it kind of like sets everything up in one place. You have your notifications for these BlackBerry apps. You have the privacy aspects of it, but it's baked into the Android OS now. So you do have some of the BlackBerry apps, but honestly, I never used old BlackBerry phones. So I don't know what else they had.
Oh, I definitely used them because you could scroll through. That was a key thing. You'd see everyone scrolling through with the little thumb thing. That's a thing of the past. There is no thumb control on here. It's all the regular Android touchscreen interface. But speaking of interface, we should talk about buttons and ports, right?
Right. So buttons are obviously a huge selling point. So there's a couple cool customization and usability features here. So every individual key can be mapped to an app. So I can press C to launch Chrome. I don't have it set up right now, but I can press C to launch Chrome or C to launch Camera, and like each letter. So basically, you're looking at around, I believe, 87 different keys here that can all be mapped to an app. So theoretically, you could use this phone without ever going back to the home screen. There's also the fingerprint sensor. It doubles as the spacebar right here. It's fine, it's fast, responsive. And on the side, you have another functionality button that can be used to, right over here, which can be used to launch things.
This is a key benefit over the S9, which includes a Bixby button, which cannot be remapped.
It cannot.
If you do not like Bixby, you're out of luck there. The BlackBerry one can be used for anything.
It can be remapped, and it does have a headphone jack, which is not something all phones do, and a USB-C charging port. So it's up to modern specs for a phone. It just has a keyboard.
Now let's talk a little bit about the screen. The ability to have a physical keyboard means that the screen is a bit smaller than you would otherwise get for a phone of this size.
Right. So the screen is kind of unusual. So you can see it's a different aspect ratio because you're basically cutting off the screen right here. It's a 1080 screen, but the other aspect is I think it's like 1660 by 1080, which is not something we normally see. Most apps seem to run okay. You have Chrome. If we had internet, we could show you Chrome. Games can run, but you'd have to kind of turn it like this for a lot of games. So that's makes it a little bit harder if you're someone who games a lot on your phone.
You're having to move your right thumb over beyond the keyboard, basically.
Right, essentially you're reaching over here. And the one other issue is if you're gonna launch your camera, turning it to this side is kind of awkward. So a good thing to do is just map your shutter key over here, so it's a little bit easier to take pictures. It's a lot better, lot easier to just snap photos in this mode, portrait mode.
So for those sacrifices, is the keyboard actually a thing that is useful? Like, is this something that you would give up that convenience of the screen access to use the keyboard?
I think if you...
Other than shortcuts, obviously.
Other than shortcuts, if you're someone who types a lot, so these keys are a little bit different than the one on the Key 1. They're a lot easier to press. They're a lot easier to find because they're angled a little bit more, so it's easier for your thumbs. So if you're someone who types a lot of emails, if you send a lot of texts, and keyboard is important to you, and you never liked touchscreen keyboards, then it's definitely a selling point. If you're someone like me who's always used touchscreen phones, then it's probably less of an appealing feature, and you'd probably be better with the OnePlus 6.
Let's take another question.
Wouldn't it be better to have a clamshell keyboard or a retractable keyboard?
In theory, it would be. The BlackBerry Priv tried that. We reviewed that too, and so the main issue that people had with that is breakability. So you're sliding something up and down, and it eventually wears out. People had issues with build quality. It wore out. So yeah, I'd like to see that design again. I thought it was unique and definitely like the best of both worlds in a lot of ways. You have the touchscreen and you have the keyboard. But in that case, like if you think about it, then you're adding the keyboard like here, and then the touchscreen is a full-size touchscreen here, so it's just a size issue too. Yeah,
anytime you add complexity to the phone, it's going to obviously decrease more complex phones will break more, and that's one of the key reasons why a touchscreen is so great for a phone that you're taking in and out of your pocket. There's nothing really to break other than if you drop the phone.
Right. And the nice part about this is it's like, it doesn't feel like I need a case for this. It's like a grippy texture.
It looks great. I mean, yeah. I think that looks really good. I really like the back design of that, the textured back with its slightly soft touch. I think that looks fantastic. Now, how does it perform though? What carriers can you use it on? Is this going to give you good actual data and call performance?
So it is, you can get it unlocked. So AT&T and T-Mobile are your carriers. I don't know if those carriers sell it yet. They may in the future, but currently we don't have confirmation on that. It does have solid network performance. We have the network bands here somewhere. So,
Oh, yes, right here.
So you can look up, I'm not going to read the whole list of LTE bands, but I will point out that the only thing missing is T-Mobile band 71, so rural coverage may not be the best if you're a T-Mobile customer. It has certain Verizon LTE bands, but we tried to use it on Verizon and it does not work. So
Okay, so you're basically limited on this phone to AT&T and T-Mobile,
Right.
Which is fine because especially T-Mobile has very good coverage throughout much of the country. Now, the question is though, if you don't want a keyboard, or if you're ambivalent about a keyboard, which is one of the main selling points, and you don't really, you think that maybe security is something that you're worried about, but not something that you're going to be specifically using to use as a criteria to buy the phone, what else should you look for besides the BlackBerry Key2?
if you care about security, honestly, the best phone wouldn't be Android probably for security. It'd be an iPhone. At that point, you're looking at like $800 to $1,000 for whatever the latest iPhone is. Yeah. If you still want an Android, there are like Samsung Knox is there, so all high-end Samsung phones, the S9, the S9 Plus, the Note 8. The Note 8 is popular, so if you're like a business customer. So those all have security software and management features for your IT. So that's a great phone for security. And if you're an average customer and you're just looking at something for price, then the OnePlus 6 is a little bit cheaper and probably a little bit better performing.
Yeah, and the key thing with the OnePlus 6, the camera is great.
And the camera is great.
It's an excellent camera. Let's take another question.
Got an interesting question for you. Is there such a thing as a phone that's sort of like the DS, except like, so the bottom screen is a software keyboard?
So we love interesting questions. We actually just a phone with a software keyboard that are you envisioning one that flips out? I mean,
there was. If you remember the ZTE Axon M back before ZTE kind of, I don't know what ZTE is right now. I think they are not embargoed anymore, but I guess we'll see. The Axon M came out to AT&T, and that was like two screens kind of pasted together with a hinge in the middle. And
that was just last year, actually.
That was just last year. It seems like ages ago. It came to AT&T. You could use the keyboard on the bottom. That was a software keyboard. I didn't really see the advantage to that.
So, yeah, I mean, did anyone buy that? Have you seen that in the wild anywhere?
Well, ZTE was embargoed by the Trump administration, and now kind of exists, but not really.
Yeah.
I don't know what their sales were on AT&T. I can't imagine it was hugely popular. It was just kind of like an interesting idea, like a concept.
Basically, that answer to that question is they're out there in the margins, but might not necessarily be easy to buy. The other one that comes to mind is actually a brand new phone from Asus, a gaming phone called the ROG phone, where they're actually planning to, although they haven't released it yet, they're planning to introduce a 3DS style case for it that you can actually slip the phone into. It's a separate piece of hardware, and then it has game controllers on the bottom. A bit different than a keyboard, but still the same concept. So there are wacky phones out there. The BlackBerry with its physical keyboard is far from the most most wacky design. Let's take another question.
You mentioned it feels pretty durable. Is there an actual rating for it for waterproofing or anything?
It is not waterproof. I believe it's somewhat resistant, as in it can take, it can handle that too. Yeah. It can take splashes. I don't think it's military standard. So it's not military standard, so it's not like military spec. I'm gonna drop it. Okay, there you go. Just kept telling me to drop it. So it can handle a few bumps. It does feel durable. If you use a case on it, it will probably be more durable.
Let's take another question.
So we really don't have like a category for this. Like, this is not really, it's competing against other Android phones, but there's not really anything else out there that isn't produced by BlackBerry that really compares to this, right?
Yeah, I have not, unless you're looking at feature phones, which are not something we get a lot of in the US market. They're really popular in Japan. Yeah, we don't get a lot of phones with keyboards, physical keyboards. So yeah, I can't think of another keyboard phone that this competes with, except BlackBerry's own old keyboard phones. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Yeah, it does not.
something like I feel like there should be like an Xperia device that has a keyboard that's only sold in Asia, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think there could be. I know Samsung likes to sell feature phones with keyboards in Japan only, though, because it's popular in that market,
Yeah.
but not really here.
But basically, though, this really is, as a result, this is one of your few options for a phone with a keyboard. It is from BlackBerry, which is no longer owned by BlackBerry of old. It's owned by TCL now. There's been lots of changes. It uses Android, but it is overall a very niche product, both in terms of price, $649, not many phones around that price, and in terms of the features, the keyboard, things like that, extra security for IT features. For all of those reasons, though, it's because of that niche use case, we gave it a 3.5-star rating. That doesn't mean that it's not good for certain customers, but ultimately you might want to look at the Galaxy S9 or the OnePlus 6 on the low end or the high end if you're interested in a more mainstream phone with a better camera.
Right.
And so that's pretty much it. The BlackBerry Key2 $649 only works with T-Mobile and AT&T right now. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with yet another one cool thing for you.